Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk, our version of a podcast where you walk, if you want to, while we do the talking. So if you're up for it, plug in your earphones and listen while you take us on a walk. Use this time to move your body and nourish your mind. I'm Sarah Mayo, one of the co-founders and trainers at Point 3, and I will be hosting this episode of Walk the Talk. So this is the next in our podcast series aimed at HR professionals and business leaders and anyone that's interested in the mental health, well-being of people in the workplace. In today's conversation, I talk to Soji Olufunwa from EQ Investors. And this is a company that really walks the talk. The conversation is rich with ideas and ways to create a culture that encourages health and high performance in an authentic and a real way for them. One that recognizes that health and well-being of people are the fundamental sort of starting point for a healthy business, but also for a business that wants to be a force for good in the world. So, on to today's conversation. So, hello and welcome to today's conversation. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Soji Olufunwa, or Olusoji Olufunwa, who's Executive Assistant at EQ Investors Limited. Welcome, Soji.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here, Sarah.
So let's get started. And Soji, in your own words, please could you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your role and your experience or perspective, I suppose, around mental health and well-being of people in the workplace and why it's particularly important to you.
Okay. My name's Soji Olufunwa. I work for EQ Investors. I've been there now in my 11th year. We are a financial planning and investment management firm based in London. We also have an office in Hove as well. And we deal with giving people advice about their finances and managing their investments. And that's kind of us as a business. My role within the business kind of stretches across a few areas. There's HR, there's support to executive board and the board of directors, some operational project type work, and other sort of strategic or special projects. So a few different areas that I'm involved in. And in answer to your question around work that I've done or that we've done in terms of mental health and well-being, it's something that very important to us as an organization and just generally. So we've always tried to either put on initiatives or talks or programs, different things that can bring the conversation to the table, whether it's people coming into the office or people within the office having an environment which they can talk to someone about or a subject about. We want to be as open as possible and have as many avenues as possible so that people can express when their mental and health and well-being isn't 100% or what they need to get it up to 100%. So those are some of the things, in short, that we've been trying to do over a number of years as an organization to get the conversation going and getting things out there so it's not a taboo subject.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for all that you do to promote the conversation and lots to unpack as we go through today. So let's start off. It feels kind of appropriate to start our walk the talk conversation with some warm-up questions.
Okay. ready to get warm.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I know we're recording this on quite a warm and balmy day. So first one, something that we ask at the beginning of all of our kind of training, it's a one word or two word check-in. So 1 or 2 words to describe how you're feeling right now, Soji.
Okay. I would say, if I could sort of compartmentalize how I'm feeling in one word, I think it'd probably be stretched. Not physically, kind of more mentally, emotionally, diary, etc. stretched. So things are very busy at work, lots of different things going on, very busy in my home life, and lots of things going on there. Good things, not necessarily bad things, but I feel that I'm very, very busy and quite time poor. It's something that I speak to a lot of people about at the moment. Do you have much time as a parent in your job, etc.? The answer seems to be the same. So stretched is how I'm feeling right now.
Okay, well, my first response to that is thank you for being so honest, but also thank you for your time today for this conversation when you are feeling stretched. We chatted before we sort of properly got going, didn't we, about the sort of the time right now and how it kind of feels busy for a lot of people. It's that sort of up and down, there's lots going on, it kind of feels chaotic. So I hear you, I kind of feel I'm with you there. So it's we appreciate your time and you sharing that. Just a point on the one word check-in. It is a great way to pulse check, isn't it? With your team, with yourself, to be honest, because even just sort of acknowledging and sort of saying those words, somehow there's a bit of relief in that, I hope, for you. Certainly that's how I feel, just to sort of get it out there and for others to know how you're doing rather than sort of bottling it up.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agreed.
Okay, so moving on to, we like talking about sort of those well-being non-negotiables. Often there's a lot of things at work that are non-negotiable. You have to do, I don't know, your timesheets or get your expenses in on time. Lots of other examples of things that you have to do daily or weekly. When it comes to your well-being, what are 3 of your well-being non-negotiables? So those things that you prioritize day to day or week to week to manage your well-being.
Okay, I'd definitely say one of them would be to try and get out of the house if you can, every day. So if it's in the office, take some time out, whether it's get your lunch or just to have a bit of a walk. If you're in the house, don't be stuck in front of the PC or the laptop all day. Get some fresh air. It could be for 10 minutes, it could be for longer, but just to get a bit of a break away from a screen every day at the weekends as well. So try and get out of the house every day if you can. So that's definitely one of them. The other one that springs to mind would be around if you can. So I've already alluded to being time poor. I use that phrase quite a lot, or stretched. If you're really busy, to at least make some time in your day to have one meal if you can, to be mindfully enjoying that meal. So you're not rushed, you're not scoffing it down, you're quite chilled out. So
Yes.
that's lunch, so that's dinner. It's very rarely breakfast. But try and have one meal a day if you can, where you can take a bit of time and enjoy that meal. So I'd say mindful eating, getting some fresh air. Those would probably be 2. I think of a third, but it's quite a good, well-rounded number of things to have. I can't think of a third. I'm going to stick with those 2. If I thought of a third, I'd just be
Okay.
throwing one in for the sake of it. So I'm going to
Yeah.
stick with those 2. Mindfully eating, getting some fresh air.
Brilliant
Mm.
advice. Yes, I love both of those. So thank you for inspiring me and inspiring our listeners too. What about, do you have a quote or a proverb that inspires you sort of day to day, or something that you kind of um, would be willing to share with us and inspire us with?
Quote, I would say, again, this probably sounds a bit cliche. One, a good way to sort of potentially lead life or career or whatever you're doing is to uh it's that sort of that fear element that people introduce when they're doing anything. I would say that don't be afraid to fail
Yeah.
in whatever you're doing. So, if you're bringing 100% of yourself to the environment and you're doing your best, don't worry about perfectionism. Don't be afraid to fail. I think that's quite a good proverb or quote or saying that I like. I try to live by. I think it's a cool one, and I agree with it.
Love that. Thank you. Um, moving on to sort of leadership, we're going to talk some more about leadership together
Mhm.
today. But what does leadership mean to you?
Leadership is quite a few things. It means achievement.
Mm-hmm,
So if you're in a team or group organization, if you're a leader, that means you have achieved, you're looked up to.
mm-hmm,
Um, with that comes responsibility, because you're
mm-hmm,
responsible for other people. Um, and with that responsibility means, judgment, decision making,
mm-hmm,
those are the kind of things that leadership means to me, or that I would associate with leadership.
mm-hmm.
Um, but it also, and with that responsibility, there's that as well. So it could be leadership in terms of family life, as a parent, you've got children that are sort of your
Mm-hmm.
dependents. So that's kind of a leadership role, as well as in your workplace. So yeah, I would say responsibility um, is a key part of that. Um, and achievement, as I alluded to earlier, was also a key part of that. Those are two kind of things that leadership means.
Love that. But I love also how you've taken it out of the workplace as well. We can, in all walks of our lives, we can all be leaders in
Mm.
some way of others. What about sort of the best or perhaps worst bit of leadership advice you've ever received?
Okay, best bit of leadership advice, I guess. Often, so looking at it through the lens of sort of the corporate work career environment,
Hmm.
um, the skills you need to be a successful leader or to do well in leadership roles are often different from the skills that you have obtained or used to get to that role.
Yes.
So once you become a leader and manager of people, teams, companies, etc., the things you're doing are very different to the things day to day you were doing to get to that role. So I guess leadership advice is be mindful of that and
Yeah.
try to constantly develop and learn and stretch yourself rather than thinking this is what I'm really good at and this is what I've done before. Because you might find if you get into a leadership role or you're a leader that you have to apply your mind differently and work in a different way. So that's some advice that leaders have said in the past
Mm.
from their roles that they're doing. It's quite different at a leadership level because of their day to day is very different to the kind of things they were doing prior to becoming a leader or the things they were doing well that allow them to progress to being a leader. So I thought that's quite interesting insight, I guess, from those in leadership positions.
Yeah, and I think that sort of kind of ladders up to your previous response about achievement and responsibility. So
Mm,
often people get promoted to that leadership position, and that is an achievement, to reward and recognize what they've achieved. But it doesn't stop there. Then there's this responsibility, because suddenly you're responsible for others and
mm,
their achievement, and that actually is very different type of
yeah,
role,
and skill set
and
needed.
skill
So
set.
yeah,
Yeah, and then there's often that gap, isn't there, between, because how people are often sort of expected to sort of just learn that on the job,
mm,
or learn from what they've seen their leaders do, or otherwise. So yeah, there can be a gap there.
mm.
Very interesting. Thank you. What about a great book or a podcast that you recommend we should all read, listen to? I'm always looking for new
Should all read.
recommends.
Okay. So it's interesting. A lot of the books that I'm hearing or being read to at the moment, mainly by my son. So they're not they won't win any Booker prizes or anything like that for literature, but it's quite interesting getting into books again or books you hadn't read when you were younger, but you've heard about now. So right now, I would say the books you want to read for that kind of demographic of between maybe like 7 and 10,
Love this.
or be read to between that demographic of 7 and 10, are all the Percy Jackson books,
Oh yes.
all the investigators books,
Okay.
um, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So that those three series are all good ones to
Oh, I'm
to.
writing notes. I mean,
Okay, right.
I know I can listen back, but well, that's so interesting because yes, I have a nephew who's really into Percy Jackson.
Mhm.
So likely he will be into the others that you suggested. So it's always
Mm.
quite good to get the inside track. Um,
And then if I was recommending, I'd probably link this question to, you talked about leadership
yeah.
already. So a good kind of leadership management type book. But it's a book about life, but it has leadership examples. Is It's a sports book. It's called Leading. It's by Sir Alex Ferguson.
Oh, I've heard a lot about it, but not read it
Yeah.
before.
It's a really good book in the sense that all the case studies and examples about the football world, but it's not really a football book. It's a book about management and leadership. So you don't have to be interested in football to read it, but they're quite good case studies and examples if you are interested in football. So yeah,
Yeah,
how
that
do you
makes
lead
me
a
think.
multinational organization for 20, 30, 40 years? Um,
Mm,
it gives good insight into how he did that and how he did it successfully. So I would say if you're looking for that kind of coaching management style
mm,
book, that's a good one to read. Um, I'm not sure if there's like an audio book for it as well, but yeah, that would be one as well.
sure, there will be.
Mm.
Brilliant, thanks. Great to well, a number of interesting recommends there. So thanks so much. Okay, so are you feeling warmed up, Soji?
Very, very ready to go.
Okay, so let's get properly into the conversation. So, well, we met maybe 3, 4 years ago
Mm.
through the B Corp movement. Um, so, your organization, EQ Investors, are a B Corp, as is point three. And I'm intrigued to understand why being a B Corp matters to you and to EQ Investors.
Okay. Yeah, so we've been a B Corporation since the sort of the program or the movement started in the UK, so back in 2015.
Yes, you were one of the founding ones.
Yes,
Yeah,
in the
that's
UK. And I guess the reasons why we're a B Corp then, or wanted to become are still the same as now. So we wanted to uh, join a movement or work with a group of companies or an organization that has similar values
mm,
to ourselves.
mm,
So in terms of looking holistically at the people,
mhm,
in terms of your clients, your staff, in terms of your customers, in terms of standards and the way you do things.
mhm,
You know, we're not just interested in making a profit or revenue. It's more about how can we be more impactful on what we do to society. Um, and having that experience with other like-minded firms and working with like-minded people, that's kind of one of the initial reasons why we wanted to be a B Corporation and why we've continued to work with B Corp. We like working with other B Corps, etc., such as yourselves. When we
mm,
first reached out to a company that could help us with some training around mental health and well-being, the fact that point three were a B Corp, that's what
mhm.
attracted us to you. So those are some of the things that matter to us, the firm. Um, and and linked to that is sort of being a B Corp. I think that ties in really well with that.
Yes. Well, we appreciate that, and we think yes, it's a fabulous community and force for good, and some amazing initiatives that are being rolled out regarding sort of how to the Better Business Act, for example.
Yeah.
Um, and what are some of the actions that you have taken as part of being a B Corp? Because of course, being a B Corp, they hold you to account, don't
They
they? There
do.
are
They
so
do.
many standards to adhere to. Um, so yeah, what actions or what are some of the examples of initiatives that you've undertaken that you are most proud of?
So I guess it would be things. So when I look at sort of things to do with our staff and our workers, looking to it's something that we've always wanted to do anyway, but in line with sort of B Corp standards, diversify our workforce. So
Mm-hmm,
we're part of one of the charter holders in the Women in Finance Charter, which sets targets and provisions around women in management positions.
mm-hmm,
We're heavily involved um, with a charity called Soji, who they look to get 16 to 24-year-olds who are not in education, employment, and training into the workplace. So we've worked with them for a number of years. I guess just as we're about to become B Corp for the first time, and across the last 10 years, in terms of getting that cohort who are kind of not knowing what they want to do in terms of work into the workplace. So, we have approximately 10% of our staff come from Resurgé Spear. So that's sort of on the staff side of things. In terms of other kind of B Corp type of initiatives, I guess our ownership structure. So we are partly owned by our charitable trust, a foundation. So it's not just owned by an external company. Staff are shareholders and a foundation shareholders. So these are some of the things that B Corps look to, or B Lab looks to in terms of meeting its core requirements, or in terms of its recertification every 2 to 3 years, and the standards they want firms to adhere by. So these are some of the things that we've implemented over that 10-year period.
Well, fantastic. There's some real sort of grassroots initiatives there, through to, obviously championing leaders, women into leadership roles right at the top. So, and of course, all that work with the charity and your foundation. So,
and as you say, it's they do, in terms of recertifying, it's quite a stringent and process. We're actually going through it right now, so they will do their due diligence on every part of your business to make sure that you are walking the talk.
See what you did there.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Well, so back to walk the talk. And we've mentioned leadership a number of times. So moving into that sort of subject area a bit more and thinking about leadership and managers. Our latest leadership survey came out a few weeks ago, and it revealed some key kind of people challenges that are impacting businesses right now. And I'd love to get a sense from you in terms of whether they resonate. So let me just sort of highlight what they were for our listeners. So the main findings highlight the need for leaders to invest in middle management from a training point of view, particularly from as a sort of a linchpin, if you like, for organizational health. They're sort of maybe the lowest hanging fruit, but also the most influential in terms of up and down within an organization. The need to reskill and lead through the change, the huge transformation that's happening across industries, particularly in response to AI. And that, I don't know about you, but that everyone seems to be talking about AI on LinkedIn. It's the thing, and every industry is clearly looking at it and addressing it, and or looking to see how they address it. I'd love to hear from you on that. The need to create environments that prioritize psychological safety and well-being, something I know you do kind of instinctively at EQ Investors. But also then sort of moving into kind of adapting leadership approaches to accommodate generational diversity, but also neurodiversity. And then specifically around DEI and sort of reaffirming the sort of the visibility and the impact of DEI strategies in terms of a priority. Do these resonate for you and EQ Investors right now, and which feels sort of most challenging or pressing at the moment?
Yeah, they do definitely resonate. I'm sure, as they've come out as the key things that are impacting on businesses, ours is no different. So I guess if I could address each of them individually, so in terms of investing in middle management training, I guess it's that upskilling and training and development, I guess I alluded to that earlier, to do with people coming to leadership roles, but it's across the board. People want to develop their careers. They don't want to stay stagnant. They want to keep on learning.
Mm.
And so how do you create an environment that satisfies that? Because if people don't think they're being developed within your organization, they will probably go somewhere else where they think that they might be able to be developed elsewhere. So whether it's soft skills training or technical training, we try to put a program in place in which we can meet the needs of staff. So we often have, we have surveys, we have
Mhm.
forums, we have something at EQ called the listening space,
Yes.
which is an environment in which we invite staff to come and talk openly, Chatham House rule style, about certain subjects or certain areas, things they think might need improvement, or things that they want as employees. Senior management aren't allowed to attend, so it's quite an open forum. So you don't feel if I say something out of turn, will that count against me? And then those comments and feedbacks are brought back to the executive board and discussed, and from that we can put in place soft skills training programs or technical programs or things that can help those in middle management to do their jobs better, and
Mm.
those in other parts of the business who want to develop to be able to develop internally, because we don't understand the importance of that. So that's kind of how we try to manage that challenge.
Mhm.
In looking at the response to AI, I guess you've got to look at it two ways. Is it, I, I guess I think people see AI at the moment as quite binary. It's divisive and problematic, or it's really advantageous and helpful. So we'd
Mm.
like to say we're in the advantageous and helpful pool.
Mhm.
So we're looking at how can AI make our jobs more effective, more efficient,
Mhm.
more impactful,
Mhm.
rather than AI is here to take our jobs.
Mhm.
So, there are initiatives we're working with internally and as a financial planning industry as a whole that can make the process more streamlined, um, can help advisors and teams do their jobs, can help investment managers do their jobs, and can also be of benefit to clients.
Mm.
So that's how we're seeing there are this sort of AI evolution or revolution at the moment. It's, let's look at the positives and how can we help us in our roles and how can it help us do our jobs in serving clients. So that's kind of how we're approaching that. Um, Environment to prioritize with psychological safety and well-being. Well, we want to create that safe space in the workplace and that open environment, transparent environment where people can feel safe to have discussions, to say what's going on, and even if they're not okay, to be able to put their hand up and say I'm not okay, and
Mm.
have those who are skilled enough to help them with that, whether it's mental health first aiders internally in the business, whether it's external experts through um, our partners in PMI or through our EAP services. We want to give people the option to speak to and have help from those that are experts in those areas. And also for managers to feel comfortable having those conversations with staff if someone wants to come and have a chat with them about something that they're not an expert in, to signpost those things and to lead and to steer them in the right direction, or just to be someone that's there to have heard what they've got to say and try to help them where they can. So yeah, that environment in the workplace, that's really important for us, because we want
Mm.
people to to be open enough to share when things aren't so great.
Mm.
In the past, that might not have been the case in most workplaces, but we want that ours to be definitely the kind of workplace where you can have that environment. Generational diversity and neurodiversity. Yes, it technically, you talk about, when it comes to neurodiversity, about reasonable adjustments in the workplace.
Mhm.
Um, we have an environment and we want to create an environment in which that's just standard, that's just BAU.
Mm.
So any person who whatever their diversity is, um, will feel comfortable that they can come to a workplace like ours and have the tools, and whether it's the technical tools in terms of IT and equipment, or have managers that understand what they're going through or what their diversity is, in order for them to have the same work experience as anyone else. So it shouldn't be a different work experience. They should feel comfortable that maybe, for example, their neurodiversity won't hinder them in the workplace. So our approach from leaders is create that environment that gives them that. Generational diversity, I guess, what do people want from work now who are joining the workforce in their late teens, early 20s versus 30, 40 years ago? So I think the workplace as a whole has changed in the sense that it's quite interesting. I would say maybe when I started work about 20 years, no, let me think, about 20 years ago, if you're going into a job, you would be thinking about, okay, what you can do for the company, how you can sell yourself to them.
Yeah.
Now it's the inverse. It's actually companies that are now thinking, and individuals going to jobs thinking, okay, what can you offer me? So individuals need to, so companies need to be aware of that and tailor everything they do from
Mm.
not just salary and benefits, from um, you know, the way they treat staff to the way they progress them, to the programs they put on about health and well, everything that the company is doing now in the workplace, it is about, okay, what can we do for you? Because there are options out there for individuals, more options than they had 20, 30 years ago. And they're much more well versed in terms of researching about this, that companies
Mm.
have to up their game. And so I think that's the biggest shift
Yeah, that's
between people coming into workplace now and those who are coming into the workplace maybe 20, 30 years ago. And yeah, companies need to be aware of that.
mm. So it's like
Mm.
they're the ones that are being interviewed, really. The company
Yeah,
is being interviewed as
the
well.
companies are they're being interviewed, but they know that the programs they put in place and the experience that the employees have, it's as much about that as it is about just paying rations. So,
Mm.
you know, that's where companies need to have that because they want to and because they need to have the different structures in place in which will attract the best talent.
Yeah.
Last point was about DEI strategies. I've gone on for quite a while here, haven't I?
No. There was quite a lot of questions to go through. So thank you. This is fascinating.
Uh, I guess our DEI strategies haven't really changed at all. I know there are some organizations out there that are changing their approach to things, but we talked about earlier about
Mm.
things like being part of the Women in Finance Charter, working with Sergio Spears. I trust to get different people from different backgrounds, which is
Yeah.
it's a social mobility program to get different people into the workplace. That hasn't changed for us from day one. So I don't really see our D&I strategies changing in the future either.
So listening to everything you've said, well, something that jumps out to me is that you seem to, well, it's embedded in your culture and your ways of working, which you can see because you've been part of the B Corp sort of movement right from the off. It is a part of who you are. And I know that you've done work on your values recently. We've had that conversation before, but the fact that you listen to your people, and I think you've had that sort of forum in place for quite a while, and it feels like you create that safe space where people can speak up and say what they need, and you have a process in place to then address, so that you can be quite nimble, but ensure that everything you're doing is as effective as it can be. And
We definitely try. Definitely try.
yeah.
We're not a huge organization. It's a very flat structure. So if you have an idea, a question, a suggestion, a problem, just raise your hand and say it anonymously or openly, and you will be listened to. So
Mm.
we definitely don't want to change that style of of approach to trying to listen to our staff. Yeah, that will always be the case.
Mm. Well, there's lots in there which hopefully we can pick up a little bit more as we go through.
Mm.
But any other sort of challenges that perhaps we haven't mentioned or that you have noticed or are addressing, that might be of interest to others listening?
I guess in modern day working culture, I guess the big challenge is still, sorry, it's still, but has that transition post COVID to the working
Oh,
environment,
sort of hybrid.
hybrid, flexible working,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
from home versus in the office. How can you be most effective, most
Mm.
collaborative, most fair?
Mm.
Um, you know, yeah, I think all companies are still navigating that,
Yeah.
and what works best for them versus what's just standard practice across industries and across the country. So I would say that is still something that ourselves and other firms are trying to sort of,
Grapple with.
yeah, and I think that will always be the case from now on, because the days of 5 days in the office are gone. That's never, no, I don't think many, if any, companies will return to that, and those that do they feel that's actually that effective? So, um, yeah, I think that's one challenge that businesses are probably still facing right now.
Mm.
How does that work best? Is it 3 days in the office, 2 days, 4 days? When you're in, how are you most productive versus when you're working from home? How are you productive? How do you create and keep that culture while you're not all together? It's got to be genuine rather than artificial.
Mm.
Can you create that culture online? These are all the kind of questions that businesses, I would imagine, are still discussing, and have
Yeah.
been for the last 5 years.
And you say all of those sort of questions, those ethers, those ors,
Mm,
but then layer on that the diversity of people and of generations and
mm,
likes and dislikes and preferences, and it becomes
yeah,
like a real complex
it
melting
is.
pot.
It is, because you've got people coming into the workplace, um, who will need that mentoring, that internship style of work that you get more from being in person with other people. But
Mm.
they may never have had that because they've come into a workforce where people work 2 days, maybe three in the office. So how do they get that training and that grounding if they've just started work for the first time? But if, say, 20, 30, 40% of their peers aren't there in person very often. So how do you get that? In the past, it would be everyone's in 5 days a week, so you just get that naturally. How do you
Mm.
create that now? That's difficult. Um,
And it
but
seems the research shows it is those younger generations, those newer generations coming through that are the ones that are suffering the most in terms of
mm,
stress in the workplace, perhaps
mm,
because of that. And I don't know, if I think about when I started my career, um, which was a bit longer ago than you, it was more like 30 years ago. That's frightening. My friendships have been born from working in the office and really
mm,
getting to know people, and I think it's harder to create those kind of friendships in a more sort of hybrid um, type situation. I have one sort of question which
sure.
sort of popped up as you were talking about, how do you maintain that strong culture, because you are a great example of a company that really invests in this. What are some of the ways that you can bring a hybrid or a remote team, connect a remote team?
Mm.
Any simple, I mean, often it's the simple ideas that are the most effective. Any nuggets that you can share?
Yeah, I would say, I think I mentioned before, authenticity is key.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So no
try and,
false fun.
don't try and force things.
Yeah.
Um, I think in terms of having an idea of what you want that culture to be already, it's good, and sharing it with people. So does this work for you? And if it doesn't, maybe you need to change the things that define your culture and your values. So I said we've gone through exercise in which we have changed our values recently,
Yes.
but we've talked to staff about it, we've talked to managers about it. So they're involved in the process. I guess the announcement of what your culture, what your values may be, might come from the top down. The CEOs announce it. But if everyone's part of the process, it's not so much buying into it. They're already part of it. They're already doing it.
Mm,
Very different to if the management say, right, this is what we do from now on,
mm,
and you have to adapt. It's hard to create a culture when people are being told what to do all
mm,
the time. If they feel part of the process,
mm,
if they are part of decision making and they're actually believing it, then it's
mm.
easier for that kind of environment to be more joined up and collaborative.
Yeah.
So,
It sounds so simple,
Mm.
But it's quite easy, I think, to forget. Um, and I think it's rare to really hear and actually kind of walk the talk with that. But yeah, I think involving people, listening and responding. And yes, you might not be able to meet everyone's needs and wants,
Mm.
but if you can explain what you can do and what you can't do and why you can't, or then I think people at least feel heard and they understand,
Definitely.
um,
Definitely.
and feel a part of the conversation. Yeah. Okay, so much to that we could go down a number of sort of rabbit holes. Sort of thinking again about sort of leaders and middle managers. Of course, they're interested in sort of optimizing performance of people, and engagement, and well-being is sort of the starting point for high performance. Um, what role does leadership play, in your opinion, in terms of helping support the well-being needs of people within an organization?
Okay. I think leadership, they need to be advocates and they need to be examples,
Mm.
case studies of, so to speak, of the importance of well-being in an organization. So, they have to, sometimes, the best example is someone sharing and being open about themselves. And you could
Yes.
say, well, if a leader is opening up and talking about their experiences, be it positive or negative, or the things that work for them to increase their well-being, then I can do the same. So
Yeah.
that kind of openness and transparency, I think
Yeah.
that really helps. If the leaders are maybe not saying anything or not showing, what are their non-negotiables, or what are the
Mm.
things that help their health and well-being every day, then it's harder to expect others to do the same. So I guess, yeah, that sort of transparency and being advocates for the programs that are going on, that I think that really, that's an important role that leaders need to play. And if they do that, then you'll get the follow-on responses from staff in doing the same.
Yeah, I mean, because the opposite is so true, isn't it? I mean, I've definitely been in organizations where it's sort of been like, do what I say, not what I do. It's like, okay, you say this and you've got the best intentions, but you're not even walking the talk, to use
Yeah.
that expression. So, and you look, let's look at leadership outside of the workplace and look at parenting, for example.
Mm,
Children, they copy, they mimic. It's the same is true just when we grow up. We observe, even if it's unconsciously, we follow what others behaviors, don't we? So yeah,
mm,
I think that's a really, it feels obvious, but nothing's obvious when it comes to this,
no.
unfortunately. Yeah, I think that's a really great example. um, and what does EQ sort of, I mean, you've talked loads of examples, but maybe any others do sort of differently or well, in terms of some of those things that you've just said around leadership and creating that sort of culture of openness and transparency.
Yeah, so I think I've alluded already to something. We have the listing space, so
Yes.
that's one example of that. So that kind of
Mm,
open forum, come and discuss things going on within the
mm,
business that you're happy with, not so happy with, improvements, etc. And then there's that feedback loop. So feedback's important. We try and implement surveys. We try and get people to, you know, be open to share things with managers in one-to-ones and at performance reviews. And also we've got, like I said earlier, quite a generally flat structure. There's no
mm,
offices. You don't have to knock on a door to go and speak to someone. All the senior managers, the CEOs, they sit with everyone else. So if you want to speak to them about something, just ask.
mm,
And it can be anonymously, or so we try to make sure that people are comfortable sharing information or divulging information. You're not
mm,
that comfortable doing it and them knowing who it is.
mm,
Send an anonymous email, fill in this survey, and it's all anonymous. They won't know who it is. We have something called a suggestions pig, which is a porcelain like money box,
mm,
which is in the office. And if you want to mention anything, you just write it down. You can type it if you're worried that people might know whose handwriting it is. You can type it or write it, pop the suggestion in the box, open up the box, and we read them out. So that kind of feedback loop we want to keep going. So you think things to us, we'll take them on board and we'll try and explain them. As you said, we
Yeah.
can't say yes to everything, but I guess people want to know that they're being heard, and at least there's an answer as to why it might be a no. I think that's really important.
That's
So,
such a simple thing that
mm,
every business can implement pretty quickly, I would say.
mm,
Because, yeah, you just need an email address or a physical kind of letterbox where
mm.
you can, people, as you say, that doesn't take a lot to implement. What does take the time is obviously actually reading them and responding and being accountable for that. So, yeah, bravo to you for doing that. We've talked a lot about leadership, just sort of coming as we come to the end. I've noticed the time. What can employees do to help themselves? I mean, at the beginning, I asked you your well-being non-negotiables, but I think there's often a big focus on, well, what's my business doing for me to look after me?
Mm.
But there is a big part that actually people have to take responsibility for themselves. We're all adults. What can employees do to help themselves to cope better with the challenges, some of the challenges that we've already talked about today?
So I think it could be as much as a confidence or a mindset thing. So talked about sort of earlier about um, the fear of failure, or
Yeah.
I leave that more to, in this example, to be that openness, that don't be afraid to ask that awkward question, have
Mm,
that difficult conversation, be as open as possible and as authentic as possible in the workplace. The saying is, bringing your whole self to work. Um, Try and do that. You know, maybe not always your Saturday night at 1 a.m. self, but but maybe do bring that. So if you have that, um, maybe confidence is in the right that comfort, that
yeah.
comfort that
What
you
comes
have
first,
outside of
though?
work,
The
bring it into
culture.
work. Yeah. And then if you're able to do that, or you feel comfortable doing that,
Yes.
then you'll be able to let people know what's going on, and it will help your health and well-being. And often it's not always with the good things, more often with the difficult things,
Oh,
why
yeah.
things are tough, why you're not happy, um, why things are uncomfortable. Um, if possible, don't try and bottle it up, and try and speak to someone. And it's good to talk, even just to have the conversation. They may not have the answer straight away, but just to have to get that off your chest can be really helpful. Hopefully they do have they can lead you towards someone who might have the right answers, but if they don't have them themselves. But just talking can really help. So for employees, I would say that would probably be, I wouldn't say the best advice, sounds like I'm being preachy, but
No,
those are
I
the
don't think
options
at all.
that employees could implement, um,
Well,
to help their health and well-being as well.
we know the science supports the power of just speaking and how
Mm,
that sort of closes a stress response cycle. Just actually sharing, getting something off
mm,
the chest. There's that whole proverb, a problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it?
mm,
And truth to it. And I suppose we can only hope that everyone has access to at least someone who they can speak to. And of course, there are lots of great organizations out there who are are available to charities that do provide that support if someone doesn't feel like they do have someone they can speak to. But I think that's a really lovely, simple bit of advice to end with. And it's something I'm working, it's like life's work for me, that the fear of vulnerability is something that I've been pushing through, because
mm.
I've gone through life thinking that I have to portray this sort of perfect
Yeah,
someone
this
that
work persona.
this work persona, someone who's can cope come what may, nothing can get in my way. and that's just not true. And yeah, it is difficult for people, I think, sometimes. So thank you. It's a really lovely piece of advice to finish on. So on to the last word. How are you walking the talk? Are you
So now you've said that.
talking
I've got
with someone? How are you
um,
walking the talk day to day or week to week to lead by example in your organization and in life?
so me personally, I guess, like I said, I got those non-negotiables.
Yeah.
I try to be. I think I'm quite fortunate. I've the relationship with the people I work for is at a stage when I feel I've worked for them for a long time, um, and sort of in terms of the personalities and the way we try to be as an organization. Also, I think it's a very open and honest working relationship, which that
Mhm.
helps a lot. So if there are issues in work or out of work, I feel comfortable sharing them. I think my managers feel comfortable sharing with me if there's an issue or a problem, or even if it's praise and reward. So I
Mm.
think that environment is good at the moment. So maybe I'm more fortunate.
Mm.
But even if it wasn't so good, I think being able to or being confident enough to share when things aren't so good um, is something that I try to implement in the workplace. Um, Definitely need to do more on those non-negotiables. So trying to create a bit of time for myself in the
Mm.
week, um, and not being too over-consumed or overstressed or overwhelmed by being stretched, whether it's in work or out of work. That's definitely something I need to continue to work on and get better at. So I guess I've acknowledged it. I just now have to
Mm.
be a little bit better at putting it in place. So the first part is acknowledging it. So I'll tap myself on the back a little for
Definitely,
that.
definitely.
um, but yeah, try to work on that.
Well, I hope maybe you can get out after our conversation today, get a bit of fresh air before you get back into your working day, or maybe at the end of the day.
Possibly. Yes, definitely one of the two.
Well, thank you so much, Soji, for your time and for your wisdom. That does bring us to the end. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to our audience for tuning in today. Whatever your business challenge, we're here at Point 3 to support you and your people to stress less and smile more.